Welcome back. So, we have done the toy example with the joins in our previous video. Now let's try to write join queries in the IMDb database. First, we'll write a query that will get all the movies and their genres. Remember, we have the table movie genres that contains the genres of the movies and looks like that. Let's take a look at how the table looks like. Select star from movies genres. Let's execute. So you can see the outcome. Movie 1 has genres short and documentary, 2 lines. Movie 2 is crime and comedy, again 2 lines, and so on. You can see the genres for the other movies. However, in this table, we only have the movie IDs and not the details such as title, rank, and year for these movies. This is where the join is going to come in handy. We are going now to take the same query and say, select star from movies genres, and let's call this table G for now. So we are going to put as G after movie genres. Now we're going to join, so we continue and write inner join, and then the table movies that contains the information about these movies. So let's call this table M, so we put as M to give the alias here. So our query is select star from movie genres as G, inner join movies as M. Now, we need to specify how we are going to connect these two tables. So we put now the on condition and we say on G movie ID, the ID from the table movie genres, is equal to m.id, and now we can execute the query and notice what we get. These are the columns that are coming from the movie genres table, and these are the columns that are coming from the movies table. Notice now what we have. We have this data from movie genres. We have short and documentary from movie ID 1. What join is doing now is saying, well, let's also bring the details for movie ID 1 from the movies table. So join goes now to the movies table and says, I need the row from the movies table that corresponds to the movie ID 1. Next, we have 2 rows from movie genres, and we have these 2 rows that correspond to movie ID 1 from the movies table. Then we have 2 rows from movie genres that correspond to the movie ID 2, which are also augmented with the details for the corresponding movie from the movies table, and so on. So as a join result, we have now the movies together with their genres. You may notice that we don't really need all these columns. So for example, m.id is always equal to g.movieid. So we may want to keep just one of them. So for example, we can write select movie ID, comma, name as movie title, year as release year, rank as movie rating, comma, genre. So we execute the query, and now we have the movie ID, the movie title, the release year of the movie, the rating of the movie, and the genre at the end. Now, let's go back to the query that we discussed in the previous video. We want to list the movie genres for the movies directed by Steven Spielberg and sort them in decreasing order of probabilities. So, remember that we have the director genres table, so select star from directors genres. We have now the director ID, we have the genre and the probability. However, we don't have the additional details for the director that corresponds to this director ID. What we want to do now is to join with the directors table. Let's take a look at the directors table. Select star from directors, and here's how the directors table looks like. It has an ID, first name and last name, and we want to join these two tables. How can we write this query? So select star. In the from part, let's start with directors. So start, we write from directors D. Notice that we can actually skip the as part when giving an alias to the table. And we are going to join now this table with director genres G. D.id is equal to G.director ID. The ID from the directors table needs to be equal to the director ID from the director genres table. So we have the query select star from directors D, inner join, director genres G on D.id is G.directorID. Let's execute the query and see what we get back. So these are the columns that are coming from the directors table. We have here the entry for a director 34906, Sonia Hoffman, and we get matched with one of the genres, drama, with probability 0.5. Notice that these two columns, ID and director ID, are always the same because this is the condition that we put on the join. What we want to do now is we want to limit the results only to Steven Spielberg. So now we are going to augment this query and specify where first name is Steven and last name is Spielberg. We have one line in the directors table corresponding to the Steven Spielberg entry, and this entry now is matched with multiple entries in the director genres table, each one having the director ID of Steven Spielberg plus the genre and the corresponding probability of this genre. Since we don't need to show the name of the director or his ID, we can replace now the select star with select genre, probability. Instead, if you execute, we get back the results. Let's try to order by as well. So we add at the end order by probability descending to put the higher probabilities on top. We execute and we see the result. Drama is the top result for Steven Spielberg, followed by thriller, adventure, sci-fi, and so on. Again, the same results that we got last time, but now everything is executed in a single query and we don't really look for the director ID for Steven Spielberg ourselves. SQL is handling this step. We just specify first and last name for Steven Spielberg.